Okay.
Yes, again.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is a meeting of the Revenues Subcommittee of the Ways and Means Committee. We have three bills we'll be discussing today, and we will begin with House Bill 26. This is altering the eligible uses of the small minority and women-owned businesses account, everyone's favorite acronym, SMWOBA, to allow for grants of up to $10,000 to be made in conjunction with a loan from the fund. And we do have one amendment. This was discussed during the hearing. So the amendment maintains the ability of eligible fund managers under SMWOBA to provide investment capital to eligible businesses in the state. So the bill as drafted had taken that option away, but we are reinstating it. Is there a motion on the amendment?
Move favorable. Second.
Okay, it has been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion or questions on the amendment? Delegate Hartman.
Thanks. Technologically challenged. I was looking for the hand real quick. So with the change, what does that do as far as the fiscal note and the overall longevity of the funds?
It won't have any impact. It's already authorized, so there won't be a change.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? All right. So on the amendment, all in favor? You can just do a physical hand raise or a Zoom hand raise, whatever works better for you. All right. So the amendment passes. And now, is there a motion on the bill as amended?
Move favorable on bill as amended. Second.
Okay, so we've got, it's been moved and seconded. Any additional discussion on House Bill 26 as amended? Delegate Roberts, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Sure.
I really just want to, so in this motion, we are voting whether or not we want to vote it out of subcommittee?
Yes, so this is a vote to recommend to the committee favorable with amendment.
Okay, so, okay.
Now, I know you, I think you may have logged on a little bit as we were already discussing. So if you have questions, please feel free. This is the time to ask.
Okay,
It's okay.
so, and but this is, oh, boy. This is the Board of Education bill, the student board member bill?
No. We're on House Bill 26. So this is the SMWOBA, the Small Minority and Women-Owned Businesses account.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
This is allowing for that fund to be used for small grants
Oh,
as
right,
well as loans. Right. So
Got it.
small grants up to $10,000.
Okay, I was hearing a different, I'm sorry, I was hearing a different acronym. I apologize because I was,
Okay.
is that the right? Okay.
Oh, yes. SMWOBA and SMOB. Very
Yeah.
different. Very
Sorry
different.
about that.
Yeah, similar sounding acronyms, but very
Okay.
different.
Okay, I'm clear now.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or discussion? Then all in favor of the bill as amended, please raise your hand. Wonderful. All right. And congratulations, we've moved our first bill out of subcommittee. All right. Next up, we have House Bill 410, which is dealing with TEDCO's Equitech Growth Fund, and a related mandated appropriation. So this would allow the fund to be used to cover the costs of administering the fund, and makes the corresponding change for the mandated appropriation so that the $5 million annual appropriation is to the fund, not necessarily to awards. And we do have one amendment, which simply changes the effective date to align it with the fiscal year. So is there a motion on the amendment?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any questions or discussion on the amendment, which simply changes the effective date? All right, then all in favor, please raise your hand. Wonderful, the amendment passes. And then is there a motion on the bill as amended?
Move favorable.
Second.
Second.
Okay, wonderful. Any questions or discussion on the bill as amended? Okay, hearing none, let's vote on House Bill 410 as amended. Oh, I'm sorry, Delegate Wells. Oh, you're raising your hand too. Okay. All in favor? Wonderful. Thank you. We're cruising. All right. Next up is House Bill 100. This is the inheritance tax rate for beneficiaries of limited means. So it alters the amount of the state inheritance tax that is due on real property that passes from a decedent to or for the use of a beneficiary of limited means if the property is intended to be the beneficiary's primary residence or maintained as agricultural land. In such cases, the inheritance tax rate would be the lesser of 10% or 20% of the federal adjusted gross income of the beneficiary of limited means for the taxable year in which the decedent died. Now, this is one that we are just discussing today. And I think we're going to kick off that discussion, it looks like, with some questions or comments from Delegate Polakovich-Carr. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. George, I'm wondering if we've heard from the Comptroller's Office or from any other entity about maybe a more specific fiscal note, because the fiscal note does note that general fund revenues may decrease under this. I'm just wondering if there is anything more specific, because the fiscal note doesn't actually give a dollar value.
Yeah, we've not received any additional information regarding potential fiscal impact since the hearing and beyond what was included in the fiscal note.
Okay, thank you for that. I guess I'll just say that in looking through the bill, the income thresholds that are included of $125,000 for a single filer or $250,000 for a joint filer is pretty broad. I personally would not ascribe those as of limited means. Actually, using data from the Comptroller's Office, somebody who's making $125,000 a year and is a single filer is actually at the 96th percentile for income in Maryland. And at $250,000 for joint filers, they're at the 93rd percentile. So that means they are among the wealthiest people in the state. So I would just point out to the subcommittee that this bill actually seems to cover almost everybody in terms of providing this exemption. And I think the potential, right down to the state, it could be pretty big. So I don't know if there's anything we can do to try to get a more specific fiscal note on that front, but that would be my request. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And I will say that, the fiscal note is part of why we're having this discussion, just to get folks' thoughts and questions. And any bill that has a significant fiscal note or a potentially significant fiscal note, will need to hold for a little while at least, just to see how things are shaping up. So, to look at all of those bills with a fiscal impact kind of collectively, to make some decisions. Delegate Young.
First, just want to echo what JPC said. I think that's really strong argument. Additionally, I do raise the concern about what beneficiary, the definition means as from a practical standpoint. When I look at, I'm thinking about, we're talking about land, the person that's bequeathing the land may be rich and then passing it on to a nephew who is trying to start off. While I appreciate those types of bequeaths, what's also true is that I think part of the point of the inheritance tax is to make sure that we are gathering that type of revenue where a family, a larger group, have institutional wealth or rather generational wealth. You're now creating this means where they can transfer property, especially when we talk about agricultural property, and we're not being able to, we're cutting against the policy I think that that the previous General Assemblies had set. So I don't necessarily see the benefit. If the purpose is to be that people of lesser means are able to get inheritance and not have to struggle as a consequence or lose some value as a consequence, I don't necessarily see where this is attacking. I don't know if there's a poverty aspect that's supposed to be addressed here or what have you. I'm not sure why it's referring to a person as limited means. What's the point of that? What's the underlying rationale? Is it supposed to deal with poverty or something like that? It doesn't seem to be the best way to address that. Otherwise, this is just, in my opinion, be defined a little bit more generically, because I kind of feel like I'm getting pulled here and not necessarily addressing a concern that needs to be clarified. I hope
Okay.
that was clear.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Delegate Wells. You're on mute still.
No, I
Okay.
suffer from too many windows open on my laptop. So I literally, it's like dominoes and I have to figure out where to go. But anyway, so I just, I think I agree with what my colleagues said, currently, but I want to clarify something though, because, so the definition of beneficiary limited means is someone that has an individual is capped at 125,000. And then it's capped at 250,000. So I was just trying to understand if folks felt like that was a high cutoff, because it doesn't seem that high necessarily. But so I just wanted to kind of put that in the conversation. And I also understand we have to look at the fiscal impact, but I just wanted to clarify that I don't know if, I was trying to understand if I don't think that's a high amount, basically, in terms of someone. And that also, this only applies to if it's going to be their primary resident. So in terms of them, they're going to have to pay property taxes. It's not like they're necessarily turning a profit. I understand equity, obviously, long term, but it is going to be their property. They're not selling it. So but anyway, I just wanted to add that to the conversation, because I see some merits to why this bill was presented. But and maybe I might be misunderstanding some of the bill, so I don't know if council might want to add in there, but that's how I read the bill to mean.
Yeah. So thank you, Delegate Wells. So I think I have a similar question for council, because I think the scenario where someone may be living in a home, right? That this is their residence. Even though it's owned by a parent or an uncle or whoever, I guess. If they live in the home, they've moved there, they're taking care of their elderly relative, and then when they inherit the home, they can't afford it. That's a different situation, right? And I can see a scenario where, yes, $125,000 a year is not something I would generally consider limited means. But if there's taxes to pay on a valuable piece of property that they're inheriting, that they can't pay those taxes up front, you know, I can see a scenario where this makes sense, but it says that the property is intended to be their primary residence. It doesn't have to be their primary residence to start. And so I'm not even clear, and Mr. Butler, if you can help us with this. If I own a home, but I'm inheriting a nicer home, and that is going to be my primary residence, but I'm also selling the house I'm moving out of. I mean, in that scenario, I don't see the same need, but I think it would still apply. Is that correct?
I believe that it could. I guess the question would be, is the timing for realizing the income from selling the other residence? And maybe that would be a factor as to whether or not you would still satisfy the income limitations under this
Right.
particular provision.
Okay. Delegate Wells, did you have? Another?
No, I mean, I would just say $125,000, like, I'm not saying that obviously there's folks that fall under the poverty line, but $125,000, I'm not saying that like that person is struggling the way that someone with 80,000 is struggling, but it does not, like, that's not, they might be comfortable, but like, I don't think that's like a significant, maybe the definition of saying limited means makes it kind of sound like, okay, you're taking some liberties with that use of that term, but I don't think $125,000 is like a significant, I think that that number should stay if this bill does move forward. I don't think it should go above that, but I don't think that that's like a ridiculous income limit to set. When we know people that probably have that amount of money still struggle to own homes currently, right? When you factor in debt and things like that, and you factor in inflation. But I do think that the language around intended in terms of like, you know, clarifying, like, no, this has to be you can't just like say it's going to be like verifying that. I think that would be important to clarify. That way folks aren't trying to game the system.
Okay, Delegate Vogel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm sorry if I missed this, but is there anything that accounts for the cost of the home?
So it's either, it's the lesser of 10% of the clear value of the property or 20% of the federal adjusted gross income, right? So which of those is smaller? The cost, the value of the home is a factor in that.
Okay.
Is that?
Yeah, I got to do some math here, but
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Delegate Polakovich-Carr.
To Delegate Vogel's point, I mean, I would also share, I guess, a concern that there isn't a cap on the home price. So to your point, Madam Chair, about somebody inheriting a nicer home, if they live in a $300,000 house, which is, you know, below the median price here in Maryland, and they're inheriting $1 million home and they can't afford the taxes on that, like, I'm kind of not sympathetic in that case. I think if it's, you know, different if somebody's not a homeowner or is, you know, inheriting a house of much more modest means. So I don't see any safeguards on that front in the bill.
Okay. I think that's an important point. Delegate Young.
Yeah, I really like this train of thought that we're on. Let's do the math degree here. 20% of 125 will put us at 25K. 20% of 250,000 will put us at 50K. So those would be the second piece with number 2, 20%. So for a single filer, that 20K would be the lesser if the house was a $200,000 house. So a $200,000 house for a single filer and a $500,000 house for
You may be, I think you may have frozen there.
generally, I mean, that's something I would like to know from maybe the comptroller's office, like, what are we generally seeing, as JPC mentioned, median sales prices of homes, where our median incomes. I think those would be impactful, because it seems like a $250,000 house, I mean, in Baltimore, that's a regular home. Maybe in Mo County, that's not as a median. These are things I just don't have a good sense on right now.
Right. Okay, so I appreciate everyone's thoughts on this. I think those are some good issues and questions to do a little additional information gathering on before we revisit this. And if anyone has additional thoughts in the meantime, please let us know. But I think for now, we're going to go ahead and wrap up. So thank you all for a wonderful first Revenue Subcommittee meeting, and we'll see you in a bit in